Back live in New York, I'm Brent Musburger with Irv Cross. If you're a Giant fan, don't get carried away. About a year ago was the big turning point when the Cowboys discovered Drew Pearson. Of course, they had Roger Staubach at quarterback. Then, if you look at the board, it's kind of fun, though, to see the Giants, who are averaging 13 points a Sunday, now lead the Cowboys 28-21 a half. But a lot of football to go. That's right, the Bears over Washington. You think it's Sid Luckman taking it out on Sammy Baugh in the 40s again when you look at that score. How about Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay? Tampa had closed in, and then the Steelers got a double ricochet touchdown to Lynn Swann. Got to be good and lucky. San Francisco shutting out Green Bay 13-0, 22-yard pass to Berg Solomon, 1-yard run by Linville Elliott. Cleveland and Baltimore. Oh, Brian Sipe, he's a dandy. 39 yards to Dave Logan, 5-yard run by last year's Heisman Trophy winner Charles White, and it's 14-0. Detroit and Minnesota slugging it out in the Midwest. No score in the second. Big surprise. 17-3. Pat Tilley has caught a 50-yard touchdown pass from Jim Hart, so the Falcons could be in trouble. Irv, there are some marvelous players at some of the small schools around the country.
That's why you come up with the gym. You know, Brent, a couple of weeks ago, we showed you likely Heisman Trophy candidates. Well, today, we're going to look at the great unknown, some of the best players you'd never heard of who are likely to go high in the NFL draft to clubs warmed by the thought that history repeats itself.
Few NFL clubs took notice when this young man graduated from SMU in 1954. But when he retired from the NFL, everyone knew all about Raymond Berry. In 1961, the Los Angeles Rams drafted this prospect from obscurity in South Carolina. He soon was appointed the Secretary of Defense, David Deacon Jones. But perhaps the greatest success story involving an unknown player centered on this 1954 University of Louisville star. The hope of finding another Johnny Unitas excites men like Gil Brandt of the Dallas Cowboys.
As a scout, there's a great deal of self-satisfaction when you can find players at smaller schools that go on to star.
The stars are shining ever so brightly in the small college ranks this year, like Sam Green, wide receiver for the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. He's the owner of a great pair of hands, and he has that big play ability.
He's a John Jefferson type of receiver, and this is what everybody's looking for in our wide-open game today.
There's no such thing as too many great running backs. And number 31, Clifford Chapman, demands respect. He has rushed for better than 3,000 yards in his career at Central State University in Edmond, Oklahoma.
The amazing thing about Clifford Chapman is he's almost 6'2", 225 pounds, and he holds the NAI record for the 100-meter dash in his area.
On defense, remember the name of Don Washington, a Texas A&I safety. He's picked off 17 passes in his college career.
He's big, he's fast, and he has a unique ability of being able to close on a receiver. He will be one of the first defensive backs taken in the country come May when the draft is held.
But perhaps the first unknown to be drafted this year will be Portland State's record-setting quarterback.
Neil Lomax undoubtedly will be the surprise of the draft. He is big, he's strong, he's smart, he's got mobility. He reminds me a lot of Roger Staubach. He has the ability to make a team a contender within a few years. He has great ability for a small college player.
You know, Brent, Neil Lomax had quite a day yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, it was Portland State, 105, Delaware State, nothing. Lomax completed 16 passes, 8 of them for touchdowns. He was indeed the only man in the country who had a better week than Ronald Reagan. We'll come back with the highlights as the NFL Today continues on CBS after these messages from your local stations. It's had this many highlights on the Giants in 2 years. Would you believe what happened? They intercept Danny White 4 times. White had the Cowboys moving right off the top, Irv Cross, and then Brad Van Pelt just stepped in there and picked this one off, and you have to believe this may have turned the game around.
You know, because White only threw 9 interceptions coming in this game. He's had trouble this afternoon.
Then it was Phil Simms to Ernest Gray for the score.
Well, he's a deep threat, and here cradles that one in to put the Giants to the board.
Tony Dorsett round the left side for 11 yards and the touchdown, and it was deadlocked at 7. But then another interception, this one by Mike Dennis.
This one really hurt because it set the Giants up in great scoring position, picked off there around the 20-yard line, and, of course, New York's not finished.
Who are these guys named Larry Heater? Where'd these people come from?
Rookie out of Arizona. There he goes.
Now, we all know where Tony Dorsett came from. Watch this run down to the Giant 1-yard line in the second quarter.
What a big day, Brent. He carried the ball 11 times in the first half, gained 114 yards. This guy's got another 30 minutes to go yet, too, eh?
Newhausen banged in for the touchdown. Then another interception. Number 10 again, big Brad Van Pelt.
You know, Roger Staubach's doing that game for the Cowboys, for CBS.
They'd rather have him on the field.
Yes, sir.
Tackle eligible, George Martin, the big defensive player, has got the lineman's green. Who is this Mike Freedy? I don't know where these people came from for the Giants, and I don't think the Cowboys do either. And Leon Perry for a touchdown. I'll bet you that Tom Landry's got the roster out right now trying to figure out who he's playing. Oh, here's a pretty play. Screen up the middle to Springs.
They caught the Giants in a full blitz. Even though they had a three-man rush out there, they had linebackers coming. Cowboys caught them just right, and, of course, Springs just sprints into the end zone.
What an explosion in Chicago, Irv. Here comes Walter Payton for a 51-yard TD.
You know, Walter's gained he's averaged about 88, 89 yards a game this year. That one, of course, is his biggest, longest run of the year, I believe.
How about Vince Evans on this touchdown pass? What about this young man at the quarterback?
Kind of like him. He's a strong arm. He's perhaps the strongest quarterback in football. He threw the ball 13 times the first half, completed 9 for 189 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Here's one of them.
Joe Theismann made like Billy Kilmer. One difference. Hit the guys in the dark jerseys with this wobbler. And here comes Campbell down to the Washington 3-yard line. Let's go away from Big Walter this time and give it to Roland Harper on a 2-yard touchdown. Evans and Payton are not finished. Here comes a 54-yard touchdown to Sweetness, who in this game has doubled his touchdown output of the entire season. Now, Atlanta and the St. Louis Cardinals, and here's your man, Jim Hart, looking for Chris Cones,
Atlanta was concerned, of course, about Hart's passing ability. We know they have great young linebackers, but if anybody can find a weakness in the defense, Jim Hart can.
Hey, here's a receiver that's small, slow. All he does is score. Pat Tilley.
He's one of the leading receivers in the league right now. The little guy spurts in for a touchdown.
Now, we've got some highlights from Green Bay, San Francisco. I thought the Packers would give the 49ers all they wanted in Milwaukee, but it's the other way around. DeBerg has replaced Montana as the starting quarterback for the 49ers. He sent Solomon zipping into the end zone. He laid up a beautiful pass. 20 yards for the score. Extra point was no good. Linville Elliott then barged in for the touchdown. And now, watch Solomon on this next sequence,
Great concentration.
Isn't that unbelievable? And San Francisco banged in, and now they lead it by a score of 13-3. And let's send you back to Frank Lieber right now. Back live in New York, I'm Brent Musburger and Irv Cross. And for Cowboy fans, the Eagles trail the Saints 7-0. Archie Manning strikes first in that game. But would you believe the Giant-Cowboy game? Irv Cross, Danny White had a tough afternoon.
Real tough day. He only came into this game having thrown 9 interceptions for the whole year. Had a bunch of them today. There's a touchdown for the Giants, the tackle-eligible play.
Boy, this is a pretty play, isn't it? They set the screen in the middle for Ron Springs, and the former Buckeye just bolts down the middle.
Timed it real well. They caught the Giants in a blitz. The linebackers came in, sucked him in. Of course, Springs just simply outran the secondary.
Giants led it by 7. Then it was Robert Newhouse. Veer left, cut back to the middle, and after the extra point, it was deadlocked at 28. What a day Tony Dorsett had for the Cowboys.
Big day. Somewhere around 184 yards rushing, and wasn't quite enough, though, Brent.
But then the Giants, late in the third quarter, got this outstanding catch by Tom Mulledy in the corner of the end zone, and it was deadlocked at 35. And then they went to the flea flicker, and Sims is going to go to Freedy.
What a play. Remember, it's a downpour there at the Meadowlands. Wet ball, great catch.
And it was Joe Danello hitting this 27-yard field goal that made it 38-35, but the Cowboys don't quit on you. And the receiver slipped, according to Roger Staubach, and it was intercepted, making it 5 for the afternoon, and the Cowboys couldn't believe it. 38-35, the Giants over the Cowboys, and now the Dallas record is 7-3. The Giants are 2-8. Elsewhere, final score now. Chicago shoots down Washington. 35-21. What a race in the NFC Central right now, as it appears as though the Lions are going to lose for the 4th time this year. The world champion Steelers won, but just barely, by 3 over the Buccaneers, 24-21. And Williams was rallying the Buccaneers all the way. Bradshaw went 23 yards to Swan in that game. Doug Williams had 2 touchdown passes, 26 yards to House and 8 yards to Bell. And San Francisco has just fallen behind the Green Bay Packers. The 49ers struck first, dominated the first half, but then the Packers came right back. They kicked the extra point. It is now 20-13 in the third. And Cleveland 28, Baltimore 13. Charles White has scored twice for the Browns on 5-yard runs. Sipe 39 yards to Dave Logan in that game. And there it is. If Minnesota wins it, and it appears as though they will, their record will be 5-5 or a game behind. Tampa Bay 4-5-1, and now Chicago 4-6. St. Louis is going to give the Rams, hold on. The Atlanta Falcons have not yet quit. In the third, it is 27-20 as Bartkowski is rallying the Falcons in St. Louis. Buffalo and the Jets. Ferguson, a 6-yard scoring pass and a field goal. It is now 10-0 Buffalo over the Jets. Cincinnati and Oakland just underway, and the Bengals lead it by a field goal. Kansas City has a Lowry field goal from 42 yards, and they lead the Seahawks by 3. Seahawks can't win at home, can they? Denver and San Diego scoreless, but only in the first period. Meanwhile, Miami strikes first in Anaheim. Woodley goes to Tony Nathan. It is 7-0 Dolphins over the Rams. And here it is, New Orleans 7, Philadelphia nothing. Manning 24 yards to Williams in that game. We've got a lot of highlights. Back with those as the NFL Today continues on CBS in just a moment. Only 2 games, Irv, separate 5 teams in the NFC Central, and Walter Payton exploded today.
He was way overdue to have a big day, you know. We expected it, and we're happy to see it. Very early in the ball game.
51 yards. He'd only scored 1 touchdown on the season prior to that play. And now it's Vince Evans to James Scott. And what about this young Evans?
Vince Evans is probably the strongest quarterback in football. He's a weightlifter. He has the ability to zap the ball just simply by flicking his wrist. There's touchdown number 1.
Now watch him go to Walter Payton. 54-yard scoring play. It was 28-0 Chicago. In the second half, Joe Theismann finally got the skins rolling.
The thing I liked about this play is that Theismann saw the pocket break down, and he just simply got out of there. Everybody looks for mobile quarterbacks. That's the reason why. Get something when nothing happens.
They actually ran off 3 straight touchdowns, but it was too little too late. And Chicago beats Theismann and Ricky Thompson 35-21. Now take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals, and here's Jim Hart. Cowboy fans know him ever so well. Chris Cones, 38 yards and the touchdown.
The Atlanta Falcons are really concerned about Hart's ability to pick apart their defense because they have young linebackers back there, and you see what happened to him.
Oh, Pat Tilley, free, in for the score. It was 14-3, St. Louis. O.J. Anderson, a little halfback delay. 10-yard scoring play, but Bartkowski has rallied the Falcons. Here Kane taking a pitch out and getting in. And in the third, 27-20, Irv.
The backs are really tough runners, Brett. They just don't give up. Bartkowski going up on top this time. Good throw.
And Francis has got it 27 yards for the score. Now it is Minnesota. Tommy Kramer back at quarterback for the Vikes today. Hits Ted Brown. This is a 67-yard scoring play.
How about a 10-yard pass completion, about a 57-yard run, right? A lot of speed.
Here's an interception now by Gary Danielson pass, and you have to believe that the internal problems are finally getting to the Lions.
No doubt about it. You can't go into a championship season with internal problems. They had players walk out of the camp in Detroit, and I'm sure that they're reassessing their situation now.
We got to reassess the pass defense. Kramer to Ricky Young, 22 yards, touchdown. It is 27-0 in the fourth period. The Vikings over the Lions right now. Meanwhile, Scott DeBerg going to Solomon. And watch this combination, not once, but twice. Here comes one of the best catches of the year right here.
All this takes is total concentration. The only thing you see here is the tip of the ball.
And then it was Linville Elliott slipping in for the score. It was 13-0, 49ers, before Whitehurst rallied the Packers. He went to James Lofton for 20 yards. Turdell Middleton got in from the 1-yard line. And after that, Irv, it was Gary Ellis. And then, for the Buccaneers, it was the Steelers blocking that punt early on and recovering it. That put them up 10-0. Blanchard couldn't get it off. Then it was Doug Williams to Kevin House for 26 yards in the score.
One day this young man's really going to come into his own. Have a pretty good day today.
Sidney Thornton got the Steelers ahead, 17-7. And then Williams rallied the Buccaneers. Here he is to Jimmy Giles, wide open in the end zone, 12-yarder. That made it 17-14. Now watch this. It helps to be lucky, folks. Ricochet once, twice. There's Lynn Swann. How do you do? Touchdown for the Steelers. 24-14. Williams threw the swinger to Ricky Bell for 8 yards, but they still wound up losing it by by 3 yards. Let's take you back up to the scoreboard now and get you up to date on everything that has gone on. We've got a lot of games in progress. And of course, many of you are interested in that contest right there. And I can tell you that Ron Jaworski has driven the Eagles down, and they are just now tied. That game is 7-all. Put it up there on the NFL Today board in the second. Miami, it was a Jaworski touchdown pass that did it. Miami leading the Rams 7-0 in the first. That one's very hard to believe. Denver and San Diego are scoreless. That game is in the first. San Diego figures to erupt at home. Kansas City leading Seattle by 3. The Seahawks cannot win at home. They're thinking of chartering a plane and flying it over the Kingdome with the players prior to kickoff. Cincinnati leading Oakland by a field goal, 3-0, but it is early. Buffalo zapping the Jets at Shea Stadium, 17-0 in the second period. Chuck Knox and the Bills figure to make the playoffs. It is still St. Louis ahead of Atlanta, but only by 7 points as the Falcons are coming back, and they've got a good team this year. Minnesota is going to beat Detroit. You can write it down. It's going to be easy, 27-0. The Lions are suddenly floundering. Now, Cleveland appears to be one of the stronger teams in the AFC this year. Jimmy the Greek told me before he left, 28-13, and you can write down the Browns as the favorite now to upend the Steelers. San Francisco and Green Bay, and the Packers leading it, 20-13. A lot of time to go, though, in that contest. Bill Walsh has got a marvelous offense. Okay, final scores. Steelers win it, but only by 3 over Tampa Bay. The Steelers have just not been dominating anybody. Chicago, though, downed Washington 35-21 was the final score there. And so the Bears, like every other team in the NFC Central, in it. And there it is. The Giants 38, the Dallas Cowboys 35. In that game, Sims was 18 of 33 for 351 yards. Freedy caught 7 passes for 137 yards. White was 9 of 21 for 143 yards. We got the Eagle play. Here it is. Watch Ron Jaworski right here.
You know, Brent, the Eagles are really concerned about the New Orleans Saints. They hadn't won a ball game. They said they know darn well they're going to explode one day. Jaworski to Carmichael for a touchdown. That keeps his passing streak alive, by the way.
I was just checking the schedule over here. The St. Louis Cardinals are at Dallas next week, and you got to figure the Cowboys are going to be a whole lot angry. You know, the Cowboys, at one fourth down play, they might have lost 2 in a row right now to the Cardinals and to the Giants. So for all of us here at CBS Sports, have a nice week, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday. And again, the Giants upset the Dallas Cowboys.
The NFL Today is sponsored by Ford and your local Ford dealer, who invite you to test drive the new 1981 Ford cars and trucks. Light beer, everything you always wanted in a beer and less. And by Owens Corning Fiberglass Corporation, makers of Owens Corning's pink fiberglass insulation. The NFL on CBS is a presentation of CBS Sports.